So last night I received an email from a new friend who I share an interest with her in the concept of physical immortality, which is a very unusual idea for most people, but I also find that there are more and more people questioning death. And she mentioned that she believed that, staying youthful and energetic is possible with good vibrational alignment. And I thought it was interesting she used that phrase because I had heard a song before reading her email called Good Vibrations by the Beach Boys. And I have about 1,800 different songs on my Rhapsody player, and I always play it on random, and I experience a lot of synchronicity through this, but it's amazing out of all those songs how they're customized to the moment. And I think that's a very useful way to tune into synchronicity, is to check out music and see if the song that's supposedly coming on randomly has some meaning to you. But with good vibrational alignment, I feel as though what she's tapping into is this idea that relates to string theory in quantum physics, which is about how when you break everything down to its very core essence, it's all energy in the form of strings that change their vibration, and as their vibration changes, the form of the energy or matter changes as well. The essence of string theory is that it's all vibration. So it's amazing that this whole concept of good vibes and picking up vibes from people and all this, it started coming from the spiritual New Age realm before it was backed up by science. And this kind of thing is happening quite often, this idea of spirituality and science merging. They're no longer at odds with each other as science goes deeper, as it reaches deeper and it understands what is really going on. Now, regarding immortality, you're immortal whether you like it or not. The only question is, are you going to continue to die and then be born again and basically forget everything and start over, and then slowly remember things perhaps from other lives and relearn things that you need to learn and that kind of thing. A lot of spiritual people don't want to be alive on some level because it's a very heavy experience. Until you are able to learn how to live in harmony with this world, it is a very heavy, challenging kind of place for sensitive people. I've experienced that myself quite a bit. But when you learn universal laws as to how to navigate your way through life, then it becomes easier. And one of the ways I think that we can have a good vibration is to speak our truth. A lot of people, I think, they kind of perform their way through life, and they act in a way that they think is expected of them because they feel that the only way to really be liked or loved is to give a good performance and to play a role, because otherwise people won't like aspects of who they are. But we have to be courageous enough to speak our truth, live our truth, and as this friend of mine said today, create our own reality. I think that if you take example from how most people are living in the world and you look at the kind of general rules of your culture, that can be an incredible limitation as to how to exist. So our own reality can be much more powerful than just picking up on what the masses consider to be reality, because basically the masses are, a generation or two behind in terms of what is generally accepted as normal and real. So to be on the edge of truth and reality, you have to dig into your own belief system and learn from your own experience and listen to your intuition about what is real, because it's not always going to match what your parents believed or your grandparents or society in general. So with a lot of people not even wanting to live in the world because of the problems and challenges that they face, they can see death as a form of release and relief. But if you believe in reincarnation, and over 1 billion people do, you don't get a break for long. And I believe that if you create death for yourself, either through direct suicide or punishing your body by smoking cigarettes or drinking alcohol and, escaping through any kind of distractions and don't face your true challenges in life, then I think what happens is it's kind of like, to use a video game as a metaphor, if you're not living authentically, then you get a restart button. You get another chance in the form of reincarnation. And to use another video game metaphor, you can get to your goals in life through cheating, in other words, by being deceptive and so forth, but that's not really satisfying. If you're playing a game and you find out how to get to the end of it because you found some little glitch and you found a cheat code or whatever, it's not as satisfying as playing it authentically, which is why in our life, as we reach the goals that we're guided towards, if we live honestly and practice truth along the way, it's a much more satisfying experience to live. And if we don't live, then what I wrote about in my book Unification, in the section called Reflections on Physical Immortality, is the idea that because on a soul level we want an authentic experience, if we don't give ourselves that authentic experience, then we'll create disease. And if we don't listen even then, when we have disease or accidents or other kinds of problems manifest, then, if we're being stubborn basically about our ideas of life and we're not healing and working on our stuff, then we get to start over again. Hit the reset button and then you live again. So this is how most people live immortally, is through going along, reaching some stagnation at some point in their life where they continue to, stay stuck instead of moving forward. And then they kind of, wither away, age, and die. And then they go through it again. But maybe we're reaching a point where this birth and death is becoming, there's a tipping point at which people are no longer going to continue that way because they're going to continue to grow and work on their issues. And so death will not become a necessity. And as we have lived through such abrasiveness in the human experience in our transition from ape to human, and just the crass kind of survival-based lives that people have led, then dying and starting over may have made more sense. But now we're getting to the point where if we listen to our inner guidance, we can, live rather simply and comfortably without it always being about brash survival, at least not in many places in the world. There's still people that are karmically getting lessons that relate to basic survival needs and so forth. But a lot of people, they're ready to make life easy. And in the Celestine Prophecy series, they talk about the idea of ending the birth-death cycle being something that we're ready to move into. And that's a really powerful concept, the merging of material and spiritual realms in which there is no more death. So the material world, it's still here, but we have infused, through bringing in to this world real lessons and getting rid of dogma and old religious rules and taking the essence of true spiritual truth and bringing it into this material realm, then we have that merge in which there doesn't need to be this constant cycle of, growing old, getting unhealthy, dying, starting over again. Just continuing on and staying healthy and living your life and working on your challenges. And the ego is going to bring up challenges along the way, but what you have to do in this life is to recognize what your challenges are and work on them, and not give in to mainstream thought of how to handle situations. Continue to be on the edge and think for yourself. Live in your own reality. Another thing that we learned from quantum physics is the observer affects the observed. it's a very powerful concept. It's no longer about just sitting there watching an apple falling from a tree and seeing gravity. That is true. There is gravity, but there is also the effect of the observer on the observed, which has been demonstrated in experiments related to the whole concept of energy and whether or not we're seeing things in the form of wave, or if we're seeing things in a material form. It's affected by how we actually are looking at something, or whether or not we're looking at something. And if you take this concept of the observer affects the observed, and you apply it to your life, that's a very powerful tool. And again, science backing up spiritual truth, because in the spiritual and psychological realms, we've come to understand that perception is so important. On what you focus upon is really determining your reality, and what you perceive in terms of whether or not this is a good experience, a bad experience, an opportunity for growth in your life, that's going to determine whether or not you're living in harmony. And another concept that occurs to me is the work of Louise Hay, who wrote You Can Heal Your Life. She wrote about how bodily problems that we have are manifestations of emotional and psychological blocks. And so we can look at different problems that manifest in the body and then see that as a sign that there's something that we have to work on emotionally. And I think that we can take those basic principles and taking them to their logical extreme. If you can heal yourself constantly, no matter what's going on emotionally, then you can continue to stay healthy and stay alive. And I believe that we can also, a concept that comes from an ancient spiritual perspective, is that we are given as much time as we need to fulfill our vision, our purpose. So as long as you hold on to what your dreams and visions and your purpose is, you are given the time to complete that. So don't give up on your visions, continue to hold on to them, and you will be given the healthiness if you choose to take care of your emotional and psychological issues and your relationships and live honestly. You'll be given what you need to complete what you're here to do. And instead of envisioning that it all ends in death and nothingness, come to realize that it is immortal. It's just a question of, is it immortal reincarnation, or can you stay aligned with your true purpose to the point where there is a merge with spirituality, in which that has been represented in different mythological imagery in the form of ascension or dematerialization and becoming one with the spirit realm without death. Hold on to the vision of moving towards this merge of spiritual and material existence, and that can change the reality of what life looks like. I know it's strange stuff for people who haven't already intuited this or read it, come across this kind of issue, these kind of issues of life and death. And so many people say, well, you can't escape death and taxes. Well, envision a world that has neither. I mean, taxes aren't inherently horrible, but we can certainly create a system of existence that does not require death or taxes. It's about being able to think originally and not just cling to old concepts about what it's really about here. Because when I mentioned earlier about the song Good Vibrations coming on before reading my friend's email, in which there was her mentioning good vibrational alignment, that kind of thing happens all the time if you're open to it and if you're allowing yourself to be guided. There's always synchronicity going on. And synchronicity doesn't make any logical sense at all. It's just bizarre. And it would freak me out because I experience it so much if I wasn't just surrendering to the fact that I don't understand everything, but I can still witness it and go along with it. So, if synchronicity is possible, then so is the end of the birth-death cycle. They're both equally bizarre to the logical mind.